in Washington, D.C. a few months back.
This meeting is being recorded.
All the state teachers of the year were there. So yeah, that was a quote from him, and that kind of really resonated with me and kind of hits hard. So, like I said, there's nothing wrong with good trouble. I know that's kind of counterproductive sometimes, but good trouble is always good trouble. So, thank you. I am Lee Perez. I'm the Nebraska Teacher of the Year for 2022. Thank you for having me. So I teach English language learners. So next slide, please. A little bit about myself. I was born in North Platte, Nebraska. It's a really, really small town. Literally, if you look at a map of Nebraska, it's smack in the middle. On January 19th, 1982, I have 15 years of teaching experience. So I taught for 12 years in a dual language program. I taught 7th grade world studies on the English side of dual language. I don't know if any of you know what dual language is. It's a bilingual program where English language learners enrolled. It's an absolutely fabulous program. I loved it. I then added my ESL endorsement and transferred schools, and I've been teaching at Alice Buffett Magnet Middle School for the last 3 years. That school is actually named after Warren Buffett's aunt, who was a teacher in the Omaha Public Schools for many, many years. It's an absolutely wonderful school, and I'm so privileged to be there. Yes, I am. I made history in 2022. I am the first male Latinx ESL teacher in Nebraska's history to win Nebraska Teacher of the Year. So when I was kind of researching and looking into the Teacher of the Year recognition, I noticed that there was not really a whole lot of people of color, and there was not really any ESL teachers. So I applied, and I'm definitely glad I did, because like I said, you'll see during this presentation that there is just a lot of stereotypes, myths, and misinformation about how language acquisition works, specifically with our English language learners. In addition to my teaching duties, I also coach cross country and track and field. I'm a proud member of the National Education Association, our Nebraska State Education Association, and my local, which is the Omaha Education Association. I am the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I'm halfway done with my master's degree at a local university in teaching English to speakers of other languages, also known as TESOL. I get that. I will be the first in my family to have obtained a master's. Funny story, I was going to finish that this year, and then Teacher of the Year happened, so I kind of had to put that on hold. That's okay. As soon as Teacher of the Year is up, I'm going to jump right into my master's. I have 5 classes left. Next slide, please. So these are my amazing students. So to the left, or it might be your right, these are my English language learners at Buffett Middle School. That is our mascot, the Bobcat. So in that picture, you have a plethora of linguistic diversity. You have Afghanistan, you have Costa Rica, you have Tajikistan, and you have Honduras. The other 2 pictures, the one in the middle is my 37th birthday. My students brought me in tres leches cake and then decided to make me viral that day and shove my face in it. It's very, very delicious. If you've never had tres leches cake, please, as soon as you get done with this, go get some. It is absolutely delightful. And then a selfie at one of the field trips we went on. So this is my why. Whenever I'm having a bad day, and we obviously all have them, I look at this, and this is kind of my rationale, my why as to why I went into teaching and what makes me a proud ESL teacher each and every day. Next slide, please. So I recently became a father. So this is my daughter, Natalia. She is 16 days old. So I will say sleep is really, really non-existent when you have a baby, and you really, really learn how much the human body does not need sleep when you have a baby, which is great, but she is just absolutely my angel. I actually just got done feeding her before I hopped on, so she is asleep, so I was going to hold her, but that is some pictures of her right there. So she's keeping me and my amazing wife busy. So Natalia Liliana Perez Cruz, my first. So thank you. Appreciate it. Next slide, please. So here are some celebrations for mine with this academic year and the past couple academic years at Buffett. So this year, 6 of my English language learners exited the program. Overall, in the past 3 years, I've had 26 of my students exit the program, which is the highest in my school's history. In 2020, the first official year I actually taught English as a second language full-time with my school district and under the state of Nebraska. I had 42% of my English language learners exited the program, which was a huge jump from the previous year. And each year they have, in Nebraska, I don't know how they do it in other states, but in Nebraska, they have to take the ELPA 21, which stands for the English Language Proficiency Assessment. It's a very, very cognitive, rigorous test in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. and it is not easy. One of the workshops that I do in Nebraska is I challenge people to take that test, but I challenge people to take it in another language, specifically the reading and the writing. And that kind of gives education majors and student teachers an idea of what our English language learners go on when it comes through language acquisition, and how long and how many years it takes to master and apply language in real world situations, not just in school. So I was very, very pleased because out of those 6 ELLs that exited my program, 2 of them were beginners. So I was really, really happy with that. So that's some academic success at my school level. Next slide, please. Specifically, I received a $1,000 grant from the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification. Brad Dirksen, who works for the Nebraska Department of Education, nominated me, and I'm going to use that $1,000 to take my students to several college campuses in Nebraska, as many of them have told me that they've never been on a college campus. So below, these are 4 universities: Doane University, University of Nebraska-Kearney, Wayne State College, and the University of Nebraska at Omaha. These are some schools that are interested in hosting my students for both service learning projects, multicultural events. But I think it would be super, super inspiring and empowering to get my students onto college campuses to kind of see what college is like, to see what a campus is like, to visit financial aid office, to actually visit classrooms, to talk to college students. A lot of my kids like soccer, so I'm trying to arrange visits with the soccer teams where they can actually go and get pictures taken and maybe play some soccer on the soccer field. But lots of my students will have very, very high aspirations. Many of them are refugees. So for example, many of my students have expressed they want to be doctors, lawyers, small business owners, teachers. One of my students told me she wants to be a dermatologist. So I think using that money and advocating for my students and trying to get them on college campuses to expose them to that will be super, super inspirational to their life moving forward. Because as I tell people all the time, these students are the future of democracy building in this country. Next slide, please. So this is a really, really big academic achievement that I achieved this year. And this is, if you go to YouTube and you type this in, story circles on equity, 2 of my English language learners and I have a very, very powerful conversation on equity and what it means. And, oftentimes one of the big myths is with English language learners is, oh, well, they're not capable of rigorous instruction because they're learning a second language. And that is absolutely not true. These 2 students have only been in this country for 3 to 4 years. And when you listen to the amount of academic language and vocabulary that they use and apply in this conversation on equity, which is not an easy topic to teach, you're going to be quite surprised. So basically, we start out the conversation, the students wrote an acrostic poem, and they wrote it bilingually. So one of them wrote it in English, and then in their native language of Pashto, and then the other one wrote it in English, and then their native language Spanish, and then they read it bilingually. And then we actually get into a conversation of what equity is, what it looks like in school, what it looks like in their personal lives. And so when you watch this, it's about 36 minutes long, but I will tell you it's worth your while. You are going to be quite amazed by how these students not only feel comfortable speaking the English language, but their use of academic vocabulary and how they're able to apply it to such a complex term such as equity. So I do encourage you to look at that, because I was a super, super proud teacher because these students literally presented this in front of 200 Omaha public school educators through a professional development organization my district works with called Minnesota Humanities. So please, when you get a chance, please check that out. And Emily, I can actually send you that YouTube link. But again, we have a very, very powerful conversation on equity. Next slide, please. Here's another strategy that is not only just good for English language learners, but it's good for all students. This is called sketch notes. And for sketch notes, you just need 3 things. You just need some white construction paper, a pencil, and then a fine tip Sharpie pen. And what you do is you give the students your themes, your vocabularies of your units and your lessons. And then it's a very creative, engaging way to have students take notes. Because traditionally, as we know, note taking is quite redundant, it's quite boring, it doesn't really get the kids involved. But when you look at this, it involves writing, it involves pictures, it involves visuals. So you can really, really close that gap with comprehensible input, and you can get these kids learning the materials, learning using all the ELL strategies. And the good thing is it's cross-curricular. So if you look at this one to the left, or it might be your right, this is a sketch note on the human body, so that's science. The one to the right, or maybe your left, is a sketch note on classroom rules and procedures. I can send you examples of sketch notes in math. You can do them with equations and formulas. You can do sketch notes with topics in social studies like the Civil War or the American Revolution. You can do sketch notes in English language arts with novels like, you know, the Odyssey or Great Expectations. You can literally use this strategy not just with ELLs, you can use them with SPED, our regular education kiddos, and oftentimes a group that we forget about, a subgroup we forget about, which is HAIL, which is high ability learners, because they have needs that need to be met too. So this is a really, really awesome strategy that I use all the time. I'm actually teaching summer school, high school ELL economics currently, and we just did a sketch note on terms in economics. So this is really, really one of my favorite strategies that I like to use in my classroom with my ELLs. Next slide, please. And the next strategy I use is I really, really push a lot of academic conversation and dialogue in my classroom. Now, I will say this is not an easy skill to teach. And oftentimes when we look at English language learners, we think, okay, they can never, never be capable of doing this type of work. Yes, they can. And oftentimes people say, well, prove it to me. Go to that Story Circles on Equity on YouTube and watch that conversation that those two students have on equity. But notice the conversation starters that they use all the time. Notice that the same language that I'm using is they're using. You have to understand that what you're seeing is the end result. It was a year of hard work. So if you've ever seen the analogy of the iceberg of work, where it shows, like, at the top, it shows all the, you know, the success, the pictures, the glory, the medals, all the champion of being successful. But what you're not seeing is below all the work and all the scaffolding and all the sentence frames and all the academic vocabulary I had to introduce. It took me a year to teach these students how to do it, but they were able to do it. And you have to believe, and you have to have this notion that English language learners are capable of doing this work. This is actually a letter that one of my ELLs wrote independently without my help. Again, it was a skill I taught them, just like any skill we teach any of our students. She actually wrote a letter to our mayor, basically describing how the city of Omaha can be more equitable with people with disabilities, specifically people in wheelchairs. And when you look at that, you're like, wow, an ELL wrote that? Yes. But again, I'm going to say it for those that are in the back a little louder, because this is one of the myths and misinformations that I see all the time with ELLs. Knowing multiple languages is a sign of intelligence, not a lack of intelligence. I'm going to repeat that. Knowing multiple languages is a sign of intelligence, not a lack of intelligence. The fact that kids can code switch and translanguage into different languages all the time shows that they are able of learning new material just like any other students. Because a lot of times, you know, teachers will come to me and say, well, this student can't do this, or this student can't do that. And I say, well, have you tried this strategy or that strategy? And then they come back to me and say, well, I never thought of that. Well, now you have. So please, this is proof that kids can do the work. And again, I highly encourage you to take 36 minutes of your time and watch that Story Circle on Equity. You are going to be amazed that these kids have only been in the country for 3 to 4 years. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Nebraska Teacher of the Year. I've been really busy. So as of today, I've given 40 speaking engagements, and those have included keynote speeches, workshops, and speaking to individual classes and student teachers. Again, I'm the first ELL teacher in Nebraska's history to obtain this recognition. So it is an absolute honor and privilege to be able to go around the state and talk about what I'm passionate about, to give students and student teachers tips on how to work with our English language learners, specifically in mainstream classrooms, because 7% of Nebraska student populations are ELLs. And I tell future educators all the time that with war, famine, political destabilization, terrorism, and just worldwide chaos that's going on, specifically with Russia and Ukraine, that number in the next 4 to 5 years might be 10 to 15%. So I always tell future educators, it's not a question of if you're going to have English language learners in your classroom, it's how many. And just like any students, they have academic, social, and linguistic needs that need to be met on a daily basis. And I just want to make sure that future educators in Nebraska are prepared to serve the needs of our ELLs, their students, families, and communities. Next slide, please. I just got back from Washington, D.C. a few months ago, and I actually got to meet Dr. Jill Biden, who is probably the kindest soul I've ever met in my entire life. She is a teacher. She still goes to work every day. She teaches at a school in D.C. She's a member of the National Education Association. She's a union paying member, and she is just probably the most fierce advocate for teachers you'll ever see. That experience was probably the most, I mean, I can't even explain what it was like. It was absolutely incredible. And the best part is I have 4 other ELL teachers in my cohort. Emily, I know you invited Martha from Massachusetts. She is an absolutely amazing teacher, and sometime try to get us both on here. She is awesome. So yeah, that I actually got that picture in the mail last week, and I thought I would share that with all of you because that was just a surreal experience, something I'll never forget. Next slide, please. So I just want to say, I know it's been a tough couple years. I've definitely had to deal with a lot of trauma, anxiety, and depression, just seeing how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected our marginalized communities and specifically our ELLs. So I just want to leave with a couple quotes before I kind of wrap up this little speech and presentation for y'all. It's nice to be great, but it's far greater to be nice. Please, please, please be humble, and just remember that no matter how good you are at your craft, or how many degrees you have, or how much experience you have, or how much recognition you've ever gotten in the past, students will always remember how you treated them. They're not always going to remember every lesson that you taught them, but they will remember how you treated them. So please, please, please be nice to our kiddos, and just be nice to everybody, because the world could use a lot more of that. And then the more you hang out with toxic negativity, the more appropriate that toxic negativity will become. Please try to hang out with people that inspire you. Please try to hang out with people that empower you. Please try to hang out with people that want to see you succeed. If you hang out with those types of people, you will absolutely do amazing things in your life. And I will say this, there is nothing wrong with change. I know change is scary, but change has done a lot of amazing things in my life. So please, if you have a chance in your life to take a chance and change, whether it's in your social or professional life, please, please, please do it. I can tell you right now, I was only at Buffett for 3 years, and it got me Nebraska Teacher of the Year, and that was all because of change. So please, if you have a chance to change in your professional life and move forward, please do it. You'd be amazed at what you can do. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about some human connections. So this is a picture of me and a young lady. She's from Cuba. And this is actually from the speech, Emily, that you watched from the University of Nebraska at Kearney that they recorded. And at the end, she came up and she got super, super emotional. And she said, I really, really appreciated everything that you said about specifically letting your ELLs speak their native language in your classroom. And she said, when I was growing up, I had a lot of teachers that were mean, and they said very hurtful things to me, and they were very intolerant, and they would basically tell me not to speak Spanish, that it was a terrible, dirty language. And she goes, I just really, really, she basically just got really emotional and teary-eyed and said, I wish I would have had more teachers like you that would have allowed me to speak my native language as I was learning English. And I just gave her a hug, and I just apologized for those horrible experiences. And I made her a promise, and I said, I promise that I will continue to advocate for multilinguals no matter what the political environment is. And as you know, the political environment, specifically with language and this English only initiative stuff, is very divisive and polarizing. And I've made it my duty and my mission to, Emily, cause good trouble and make sure that students are not learning English, but also remembering where they came from. And that goes along with their native language. Next slide, please. Another individual, this was a student teacher at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. He was from, I believe, Vietnam. And he basically came up and said the same thing. I appreciate you giving the knowledge and facts about how language work. I didn't really have a whole lot of teachers that understood what it was like to be a language learner, specifically because you have to understand a lot of times our kids coming over and it's two fire hoses. It's language and it's culture, and it's culture shock and things like that. So again, it's just been really, really refreshing to be able to know that I'm going out and I'm being impactful with my words and my advocacy to fight for the rights and needs of our English language learners, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So here is my contact information. If you're all interested, this is my school email, lee.perez@ops.org. My personal email is leemarkperez@gmail.com. Please follow me on Twitter @languageperez. And this is the QR code to my website. And the story circles on equity is actually linked to my website. So thank you so much for your time. And then the last slide is just me and another selfie with my awesome students. So if anybody has any questions, I have a couple minutes. But again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this amazing group today. And are there any questions?
I love it. What questions do we have? Thank you. That was wonderful. There's not that many of us. You can just unmute.
I have a question.
Yes.
I wanted to know some of the strategies that you said you use as far as sketchnoting, the academic conversations. Did you do anything else in regards to helping your students to become more proficient in English? Because your percentages were like phenomenal.
Yeah. So my first year I came there, like I said, half my program exited, and my principal, when I brought my scores to my principal, this was my first year teaching full-time ESL, by the way. So my principal came to me, he goes, how did you do that? And I basically said, well, I used a lot of dual language strategies. So I used a lot of native language because the research shows that a native language, it's called L1, can help support an acquisition of a second language. So I allowed kids to write in Spanish, write in Arabic, write in Pashto, write in Vietnamese, write in Japanese. So I was always doing things that was balancing both languages. And students, when you do that, it's super empowering to these kids because, like I said, language and culture are the same thing. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're trying to tell students not to speak their native language, it's like telling a student not to be who they are. And it's super just basically mean, intolerant. It's just a horrible thing to do. So I went in using a lot of bilingual strategies where every chance I got, I would have kids, if they wrote a paragraph in English, I'd say, okay, now write it in your native language. Or if they did sketch notes, I'd say, okay, now take this and do it in your native language. And not only that, it increases engagement, it increases collaboration with your kids, and it really makes your students trust you because they look at you as not only a good teacher, but a good human being. So try using a lot of bilingual and multilingual strategies where kids can use their native language to help support their acquisition and knowledge of the English language.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's a good question.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
Any others?
I have a question. As a follow-up, I'm 100% letting the students use their language. We use it in the classroom, 100%. But did you translate, when you're teaching a lesson, did you translate everything, or did you allow the kids kind of like organically, the kids are the ones that are helping you translate or clarify for other students? Or did you translate all the time?
I would say it was mostly the kids. I would do a little bit of translating. But another thing I kind of want to follow up is you have to understand that when you're learning a new language, you're going to make mistakes. I'm learning Spanish right now. You make mistakes. So I always tell the kids, it's okay to make mistakes in here. I want you to make mistakes. Tell them that. Tell them that. Show them examples of your failures. Show them examples of your mistakes. Because oftentimes kids will come into their classrooms and they think that, oh, this is the teacher. They never make mistakes. They're these perfect beings. And as much as we want to believe that, we're not. So please be humble and always tell the students, hey, it's okay to make mistakes because they're going to. And when you do that, kids are more willing to take chances, specifically in their reading and writing, because reading and writing are the two areas of language acquisition that are really, really tough. And those are the two that I really spend a lot of time on. So I always tell the kids, please make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you're never going to learn from them. So please go into that with an open mind, saying, okay, these kids are going to make mistakes, and encourage that. And I know sometimes that sounds counterproductive. Trust me, it's not. Challenge them and encourage them to make mistakes, because the more they make mistakes, the more learning is going to happen. I promise you that. I promise you. Any other questions? All great questions too.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hi, I have a question about your class setup. I'm
Yeah.
curious if students are with you an hour a day, if they're with you all day. Do you push into other classes or co-teach? I'm curious sort of what that structure looks like and how you determine the units you use in your class.
Right. So I have a curriculum that I follow, and I can push into other classes. I used to co-teach at my own school, and I kind of miss doing that because the co-teacher I worked with was awesome. But most of the kids come to my class and they're in sheltered ESL. So I teach them reading, I teach them writing, I teach them, the fundamentals and all those skills like that. But yeah, I have, and so I'm the only ESL teacher at my school. So I kind of have to wear many hats and do some juggling, because I'll have all levels. I'll have literally beginning ELs with proficient ELs in the same class. So I have to do a lot of linguistic differentiation. I have to do a lot of like centers, a lot of stations, things like that. But yeah, mainly how it works at my school is they're not with me all day. They're with me for about an hour and a half, and then they actually go out into mainstream classrooms like math, English language arts, science, physical education, all those other classes that they have to take, their core requirements, and then their specials. So yeah, they're with me for about an hour and a half a day. And then we do offer tutoring and other supports that can be there as an extra support to help them, specifically when it comes to like, we're getting close to like testing and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Great questions. I do want to thank you for sharing. I think I see it as a celebration. I think everything that you shared celebrates the can-do of our newcomer students, right? They can do work like this, and it's important to show that it's not just about giving a vocabulary of the weather. No, they can do content. Look at that letter to a major. So it's important that we challenge our students to do quality work like this. So but we have to provide those platforms, right? You have to provide the opportunity for students to shine this way. So thank you so much. We're going to continue following you on Twitter. I know you share stuff. I've seen you sharing. You're getting the hang of it. Yeah, if you don't mind, can I share the PowerPoint as I share the recording?
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you want to go to the website, and then I can email you the link. Again, please watch that story circle on equity. It's super, super powerful. I was so proud of those kids that day, because before we started recording, they were super nervous. And it's absolutely incredible what they were able to do and what they were able to talk about. And it's actually a video I show when I go on my speaking engagements, and people are just absolutely blown away by the level of academic vocabulary that they are using and engaging in a conversation like that. So please check that out.
Love it.
Awesome. It's literally proof that ELLs are capable of having those types of conversations and those types of dialogues, not just with their teachers, but with anybody. So, yep.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Here we are giving you a air hug and clapping.
All right.
And yes, thank you so much. I know you're gonna get back to your baby, and
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great
we're gonna
summer.
continue celebrating here. But thank you for coming.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Take care.
Bye,
Good night.
Lee. Oh, it's so exciting to see how amazing work our newcomers are so capable to do. And I want to hear from you. I know a few of you signed up to share. So go ahead, get your mic. There's only 10 of us. Well, 11 now. Let's see. Now, yeah, there's 10. Now that Lee left. There's only 10, but I'm recording. So the rest of us are going to be able to hear our celebration. So let's see who wants to start. Diana, do you want to start?
Okay, I will.
Or Maria, it doesn't matter. Go for it.
I'll start. I mean, there's a lot to celebrate. It was so nice to hear. But first, congratulations, Emily, on your new book. And thank you for doing this for us. But I'm looking forward to your new book and sharing it with our students. Because let me tell you, that's what newcomers, everybody comes with a story, and that's what I want to celebrate. We've had a huge influx this year. We went from like 5 or 6 last year, and it's during pandemic. Now we had 36 newcomers. These are level 1s and 2s this year. And it was like a revolving door in Forsyth County, in Forsyth Central. And in fact, I had one who came a week before, and I kept saying, you really want to come to school? It's only a week. And but anyway, it's just the stories that they bring and the warmth. But one thing I'm celebrating is that we had graduation. I love high school now. I went from elementary to high school, and this is 30th year, but I'm still going strong because I love it.
30.
Yes, I've done bilingual Spanish immersion. I've been in the classroom. But language acquisition has always been a passion. Because I was born in Venezuela, so I was a language learner too. Even though I look gringa, I'm not.
Oh, that's great.
But anyway, long story. Our students did great. They graduated. We had a nice group this year, 22 ESOL and 11 that graduated. And I think it's a testament of the group of teachers, everybody. I mean, it is like all hands on deck. The teachers working with them, supporting them, because they all come from different backgrounds and different purposes, but they graduated, and 11 were newcomers, and there's one in particular from Guatemala, well, 2, but and he's here alone. We have a variety of students come with their families, but some are alone, and so we are their support. We're like their family, and he went up and down, but he graduated, and I'm so proud of him. But one thing that has helped, we do a summer school for credit accrual, and I was listening about the teaching economics. We're teaching economics this summer for our high school students to move ahead. And if they move ahead, they're able to open up their schedule during the school year to take other classes. And we're hoping to capitalize on this. This is our 2nd year. And this one student took 3 classes last summer, econ, government, and visual arts, and was able to keep going during the year, the upper levels in visual arts. But I'm just proud of our newcomers. They can do a lot. They can do a lot. It's a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work.
It has to, right? It has to be a lot of work from our part and their part too. I really think it has to be a team effort with them working along. So great. How did you feel when they were crossing the stage where you're like, oh my God?
Oh, graduation was, and it's the first time for a lot of them. What is the big deal? And then they're like, oh gosh, now this one student, because he was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. He graduated and he said, you know what? I'm glad I did it. And I'm like, oh, what? Did I hear this right? So, I mean, it's just every student has their story. And your story, I've talked to girls about it, and boy, I'm like, wait a minute. It can be done.
Yes, of course you can. And they are now proof of that can-do attitude. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. It warms my heart. All right, Maria.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, congratulations on your book. Cannot wait to read it.
Appreciate that.
So for me, I think it was a tough year. It was definitely a tough year for all of us, but I was able, with the school, able to graduate 4, and 2 of them, of course, with very limited formal education.
Oh,
They stuck their 4 years, but finally they were able to graduate. I've exited 6 out of 39. And out of the 39, 37 showed improvement on their access score. So that, of course, makes it a 95%. Okay. So that's, and more than anything, I think I was really, really proud. I've had a lot of, like most of us probably have had a lot of students that have limited formal education. This year was my biggest year. I had, I would say about 25 out of those, 15 stayed the whole year.
Oh, wow.
And out of those, of course, you know, they wanted me to put them in algebra. I advocated and moved them down to foundations, pre-algebra, most of them. But then I would keep an eye on them. And then one, she was bored. She was not being challenged. Therefore, I moved her to algebra, and she was, out of 4 of my ELs, she was one that had the highest EOC with a 75.
Look at that.
So, yes, it takes work from both of us. So those were my celebrations, basically in biology. I had 2 who passed out of 6. The other ones missed a lot of school, not motivated. So
Exactly.
yeah, so for me, those are wins, but it's
absolutely.
a lot of work, and definitely we can do it together as a team.
I love it. I love it. Oh, when you get those scores, right? You just want to go show them, hey, look.
Yes, look.
I did that. Did you do that? Did you go tell them?
No, yes, definitely. So our meetings and all that, I'm like, look, if this student who had limited formal education was able to pass, giving the strategies, the tutoring with a 75, yes, is not one of the highest, but out of my 4, 75, 74, 70, that was one of the highest. I'm like, and then we have regular students who can't pass the algebra test. That's saying something right there.
Huge. That persistence. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for sharing. You're warming our hearts. Thank you. All right, who else signed up? Jennifer, you signed up, didn't you? Let me look at the list.
I did.
You did.
I teach during the day. I teach 3rd through 5th graders at all proficiencies, but the last hour and a half I teach the newcomer class, and it's 1st through 5th graders. And this year I started with 7 at the beginning of the year, and after the new year I started gaining more and more. I got a Ukrainian student. I got one from Colombia. And then at the end, I got some new Japanese students who will be newcomers next year, because we make sure that they stay one whole year. But they came because they came, and we wanted them to get them started. It was nice to see like the growth of my students and them speaking English. Like Fridays, I gave them Fun Friday. So they thought it was fun because they got to play on the computers, but they all wanted to play together. So they had to use their English with each other, because, I had all different languages. I had Arabic, Japanese, Spanish, Ukrainian. And so it was nice to see them and hearing them like interact with that social language to give them that opportunity to grow. And we also did the life cycle of butterfly, and to see my kids actually like learn. Like I did teach some tier 3 words like you're not supposed to, but they're gonna do it next year in their class. So I kind of wanted to just give them those words just to hear them, because next year in their for science, because they missed science and social studies in their class because they're with me. So next year they'll be in science and social studies. And it's the unit that the 2nd grade and the 5th graders, they do the same unit.
Got it.
So I wanted to kind of front load, but hearing them, and we went on a field trip to the zoo, and they were just so excited, and, just sharing. and we had them share in their language how to say, butterfly, and it was cool. And when the butterflies came out, the day they walked in and saw that the butterflies had come out, oh my gosh, it was like
so
they were just like all around it talking to each other. They were just so excited. So, but I really saw them grow. I don't have my access scores yet. I get them July 1st.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm excited because a lot of my kids asked at the end, well, did you
they
get them
want to
yet?
know. They want to know.
How did I do? And I'm like, I don't have them yet. I get them in the summer, guys.
That's how you know they work hard during the test, when they really want to know, because, inside of them, they know they work hard. So they want to know the score, because if they didn't work hard in it, they don't want to know.
Yeah, right? They all wanted to, a lot of my students wanted to know, like, did you get them yet? I'm like, no, July. I said, I'll tell you at the beginning of the school year. So you're going to
tell them at the beginning of next school year,
yes,
right?
At the beginning. I'm sure they'll ask the first day of school. They'll all come to me. I'll have to do that too. Wow. But my kids really enjoyed coming. And my Colombian kid, the last day, he's like, I'm really going to miss you, Mrs. Frankowiak, this summer. And I said, well, I'll see you. He's told me like 3 times in the matter of dismissal. And I'm like, well, you'll see me next year,
I love it.
Knowing that you made a difference and that they really enjoyed being with you.
Yeah, and you provided that experience, something that they've never experienced, something that they've never seen. And now they're curious about what more is there for them to learn and acquire. So that's great.
So that's nice.
Thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully when you get your scores, you can give us a little snippet of how did it go? How do you feel about their scores? All right. Thank you so much. All right, so I have the list here of those who signed up, but I don't see the rest of them here. But if you are here and you want to give a shout out to your students or share about how your year was, go ahead and tell us. We have a few more minutes.
I'll share about my newcomer. He was in 8th grade this year. He came in August, and at that time we didn't have an ELD teacher or program in our district. So he was just completely immersed, and the teachers had never had experience with an ELL or a newcomer. So I was just so amazed at his resiliency. And when I did get to meet him and start working with him in November, he had traveled, he's Haitian, but he had been to school in Brazil. And also on his way here, he had stopped in Mexico for a while. So his home language is Haitian Creole, but he reads and writes in Portuguese, and then learned Spanish when he was in Mexico.
What? That's unbelievable.
So there was just a lot this year of helping to expose the teachers in our district. We're in rural Indiana, so there haven't been a lot of EL students, and just helping to expose them to the joy of that and the power of multilingualism. So by the end of the year, he was growing academically, which was important, but I was just so proud to see his confidence growing and just his excitement to participate more. And so since I travel around, I'm K through 12, Monday through Wednesday, I just go from school to school throughout the day. So I have about an hour with him each day, Monday through Wednesday.
Nice.
So that was just so good for me to be encouraged by him and to learn about him. He started to open up more as the year went on and just share stories of his family. And it was a privilege to hear those stories and to let him know it was safe to share them. So I just look forward to next year, starting with him. He'll be moving to high school, and I'll be getting to work with the teachers there to learn more about multilingual. So.
And he'll start the year excited because he already knows you. He's got the head start of I know who is there to help me, and that's amazing.
So
Thank you
for that. But just really proud of his confidence growing.
For sure. Oh, my beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Who else?
I'll give a shout out to my kids. So I teach algebra to the newcomers, and ours, I know Maria mentioned, they get to decide. We don't get to decide. Everyone takes algebra when you come, no matter what level you're at. So they came to us, and we take our end of course exam in the state of Texas, which is required for graduation. And out of my 13, 12 of them passed. and 9 of them scored masters, which is 80% or higher. But one of them only missed one question on the whole test. So they did amazing.
Wow. So I may need to have a chat with you because, well, I don't, this next school year, it's going to be a little different for me, but we do need a little more help on how to support in Algebra 1. So you're going to hear from me.
Okay.
I want to see what you're doing. Oh gosh, can you imagine that 12? That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Jennifer, are you leaving us? Oh,
We're heading out on the boat to go see
oh,
the
go
fireworks. so-
enjoy, of course. We're going to be wrapping up in about a minute. So if you get
Yeah,
something of the
so-
giveaways, I will let you know. I've got your name here.
Okay, yeah, we're getting ready to get out on the boat, so.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Thank you, everyone.
Have fun. No, I really do appreciate all of you being here. This is your summertime. This is your time for you to relax, enjoy. And here you are, not only learning, but also sharing about the awesomeness that you've had. So I really hope all of you had an amazing year. I know it was hard. Shake your head. It was one of the most difficult years ever. Yes, it started from 2020 and then 2021, but I do feel like last year was like, oh, is it June yet? Is it July yet? I felt like that. Even though it was a beautiful year, there was a lot to celebrate. A lot of them passing EOCs and passing the test and doing beautiful work. It was a year that we were all dragging toward the end. If you did not feel like that, I want to know what the key behind that is, because it was a very difficult time. I love to see chat focus on math ELL. Oh, Mitch, what about you coming and giving us a math presentation?
I'm sure we can talk.
Jennifer, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I am curious too. I want to know what you're doing in that classroom. Thank you so much. All right, so it looks like some of you need to head out. I do have some giveaways, so you can either stay here with me. I think I'm going to stop the recording right now, but I do have some giveaways. If you're not here, it's fine. I'll email you, I'll contact you and let you know, but your name is already on that list.